بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue our lesson in the book of Nurul Idah by Al-Imam Hassan Shurun Buladi, the Fiqh of Al-Imam Abu Hanifa. We pray that Allah bless in this lesson and make it a reason where our sins are forgiven and our prayers are answered, inshaAllah ta'ala. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. So we will enter into where we were in our last lesson. Our last lesson, and we are speaking about at-tahari or ijtihad. That when a person is in a state where he knew that one of the utensils and he has najis, or one of the clothes has najis, then it is compulsory upon him to do ijtihad. And in the Hanafi madhab, they take into consideration the majority. If the majority is pure, then it is permissible to do ijtihad when comes to clothing. When comes to clothing, but when comes to drinking, this condition is not there. Even if most of the utensils are believed to be najis, ijtihad is still permissible. Now, so now we will enter into the next topic, as what is mentioned by the author here. He said, Faslun fi tathhir al-abar. So this is a chapter on learning about wells and how we ascertain that the water in the wells are pure. And the wells that is meant by the author here is small wells, because he is speaking about small amount of water. And small amount of water in the madhab of Abu Hanifa is ashara bi ashara. That's what we mentioned. 10 arms length by 10 arms length. They do not take into consideration the depth. Only some of the scholars that he mentioned that if you put your hand inside and it doesn't touch the base, and if you want to take water from it. So as long as water is 10 by 10, this is considered to be a lot of water. Anything that is lesser than that is considered to be small amount of water. So the difference between the madhab al-Imam Abu Hanifa and the madhab Imam Shafi is that in the madhab al-Imam Shafi, we take into consideration the volume of the water. So we do not really speak concern about the dimension. But at the end of the day, it must be more than 219 liters of water. Whether it is in a circular form or in a squarish form, rectangular form. But what is important is the volume is more than 220 liters. But in the madhab Imam Abu Hanifa, they take into consideration dimension. So as long as the water, if it is in a dimension by 10 by 10, regardless of how deep water can be, it is considered to be a large amount of water. So here the author is speaking about wells that are small, meaning the water that is inside is considered to be small amount of water. So he mentioned al-qadrul matlub nazu'u. So if there is a filth inside this well which contains any small amount of water, how do we purify this well? So he said tunzahul bi'ru saghira, we remove the water in the well if the well is a small one, meaning the water is a small amount of water. So we remove all the water, because all of this water are affected by najasa. So he's giving some examples. Number one, and these are examples. If these things were to occur or to fall into small wells with small quantity of water, we have to remove all of the water. So number one, he said biwuqu'i najasatin wa in qallat min ghayril arwath. So number one, if a najasa a filth falls into this well, then we have to remove the water in this well to purify the well. But this is najasa other than arwas. Arwas are the feces of animals that we can eat. For example, the feces of cows, lambs. So these are arwath, and this will be mentioned any later, because these are things any that are forgiven. Because the thing is about wells that it is very difficult to prevent the feces any of such livestock to prevent any the feces any from dropping any into wells, because usually when we have any wells, these animals any will surround any those well any for water, and sometimes the feces any that falls any from their body enters any into the well, or blown any by the wind and falls any into the well. So in the Madhab Imam Abu Hanifa, any they regard this any as ma'fuat. This is something any that is forgiven, unless any if it changes any the characteristics any of the water, which is mentioned any later. So here any the author any mentioned min ragil arwa. So this is an exception. This is an exception. Although any arwas any is a filth, the feces any of livestock or animals any that we can eat is considered to be a filth. But here he mentioned that this is forgiven. This is any forgiven to a certain any extent. And then he gave the example, what are the types of najasa that is not forgiven? Kaqatrati damin, blood any that falls any into the well. Khamr, liquor any that falls any into the well. So this is najis. This is najasa. So even any a bit of filth any that falls any into water, it contaminates any the water. We say this water is mutanajis. We do not take into consideration whether it changes the properties of water or it doesn't change, because this is any the principle. If a small any filth enters any into small any amount any of water, it makes any the water najis. Number 2, he mentioned biwuqu'i khinzir, yani if a swine any enters any into the water, walau kharaja hayyan, even any if the swine any goes up any from the well in a state any of life. So you have any a living pig, a living any swine that falls any into the well, and then somebody remove it any out of the well. So in this any situation, we say the water now is mutanajis. The water now is mutanajis, regardless whether water hits any the lips or the mouth or not. This is what he mentioned. Walam yusib famuhul ma. It doesn't yani touches any the water yani in the well. The mouth and the saliva doesn't touch any of the water, even though regardless. So as long as this swine any has fallen any into this well, then we have any to cleanse any this well, because the water now is mutanajis, because the swine in the Madhab of Abu Hanifa is najis ain. Yani this animal in itself and it is mutanajis, najis, and it's a type any of filth. Then he mentioned al-jim, and number 3, bi mauti kalbin. So the carcass any of a dog, bi mauti kalbin, yani carcass any of the dog fell any into this well. Aw shatin, the carcass any of a goat. Aw adamiyin, even yani a human being, the corpse any of human being fell any into the well. So we regard any the water as mutanajis. We regard the water as mutanajis. So here any the author any mentioned when it comes into dogs, he mentioned bi mauti kalbin. It is different any if live dog any falls any into the well and goes up any again. The water yani is still pure, because this is any one of the point and of difference any between us, between Afan the Madhab Abu Hanifa and Madhab Imam Shafi'i, is that in the Madhab Imam Shafi'i and we consider any the dog any to be najis ain, whereas in the Madhab Abu Hanifa yani they do not consider to do so. So if a live dog any fell into the well, it does not any contaminate any the water. So this is that's why the author any mentioned bi mauti kalbin. He's speaking any about the carcass any of the dog, not any the dog any as a live any animal any that falls any into the well. So carcasses are najis. Carcasses any are najis, regardless whether animals any that we can eat or we cannot eat. The carcass any is considered to be najis. So all these carcass any that falls any into the well will contaminate any the water. It makes any the water mutanajis. So we have to remove all any the water from any that well in order to purify the well by putting any clean water again. Then the next one he mentioned wa bintifakhi hayawanin walau sawiran. Intifakh yani is the bloating. Now any you have any a small any animal any that fell into any the well, but then after that there is intifakh yani it bloats. So when it bloats, it mixes any with the water. It mixes any with the water. So now any we know that the water is contaminated any by that carcass. So in this any situation, walau sagiran any the author mentioned, even if the animal is a small any animal, But for the fact that it, the animal and it bloats, then we consider the water to be mutanajis. So all these examples, alif, ba, jim, dal, basically the water is saying that the water has to be removed. The water in the well, because this small amount of water, that's what we mentioned. Small amount of water, we have to remove the water so that it can be purified. Again, طيب. But sometimes the issue is that we are unable to remove all of the water. We are unable to remove all of the water. So what is the requirement for us to ascertain that it is enough? So here the author mentioned وَيُنْزَعُ مِئَةَ دَلْوٍ لَوْ لَمْ يُمْكِنْ نَزْحُهَا. So he gave this measurement of 20 pills of water that is removed. If we cannot remove all, we must remove 200 pills. We must remove 200 pills for the examples below. Number one, he mentioned وَإِنْ مَاتَ فِيهَا دَجَاجَةٌ. A hen died. The carcass of a hen or the carcass of a rooster fell into this well, and it is not possible for us to remove all of the water. So minimum requirement 200 pills. So once we remove 200 pills, the well becomes pure again. So he gave these examples of chicken or hen and cats, hera, wa nahwiha. Looking at the size of these animals. So if you look at the size of a cat, the size of a chicken, they are about in the same size. Likewise, nahwuha can include rabbits. Likewise, other animals that has the same size as these animals. So the requirement is the requirement if for these animals. What is required is as what is mentioned after this. وَإِنْ مَاتَ فِيهَا دَجَاجَةٌ أَوْ هِرَةٌ أَوْ نَحْوُهَا لَازِمَ نَزْهُ 40 دَلْوًا. نَزِمَ نَزْهُ 40 pills for these animals. The 200 of one is for the above. If we are unable to remove all of the water, then 200 pills for the above. Above includes the carcass of the dog, carcass of the lamb, carcass of corpse of human beings, and the bloating of the small animals, the carcass of small animals that fell into water. So if we cannot remove all of the water, then we remove 200 pills of the water. But when comes to the jaja, the hens, cats, and its likes, lazima nazu 40 dalwan, 40 pills. So let me repeat myself, 240. 200 is the above, as what the author mentioned, the alif, ba, jim, and dal. Whereas 40 is for the jaja, hera, as what he mentioned in this. So I hope it is clear, inshallah. So the author is saying, if you cannot remove all of the water in the well, then you remove 200 pills. 200 pills, the normal pill. If other than this animals such as cats, small animals like this, then we have to remove at least 40 pills. Now, so that the water now the balance is considered to be pure. Again, wa in mata fiha fa'ra. So now smaller animal, that is the rat. So now he gives an example. A rat is a smaller than cat. So cat 40 pills for animals the size of the rat. Wa nahwuha, rat, hamster, such of the squirrel, for example. Lazima nazahu 20 dalwan. So 20 pills to be removed in order for us to purify the well. So the carcass of the dog 200 pills, carcass of the cat 40 pills, carcass of a rat 20 pills. So all this depends on the size of that animal. The carcass of the goat 200 pills. Tamam? So we have 200 pills for big animals. Then we have the 40 pills and the 20 pills need to be removed. This is in a situation that we cannot remove the water from the well. So this is the measurement depending on the size of the carcass that fell into. طيب. Then he mentioned ma yutahiruhun nazhu. So when we purify the well, there are certain things that follow with it. This is based on the qa'idah at-tabi' tabi'un. At-tabi' tabi'un. We have any qawaid in a principle in qawaid fiqh that when you purify something, other things follows. When you purify something, other things follow. So he said وَكَانَ ذَلِكَ طَهَارَةً لِلْبِئْرِ وَالدَّلْوِ وَغُشَاءِ وَيَدِ الْمُسْتَسْقِي. So now the author mentioned, once the water now, we mention that this water, this well has been purified. Likewise, the bucket that is used to remove the water from the well, we rule it to be pure. Likewise, the hand of the person who removes the water from the well, likewise we considered it to be pure. Now, so this is what the author mentioned. Number one is we take a look at this again. Number one is the dalw, this is in the bucket, and then the risha is the rope that holds the bucket. Wayadil mustasqi, the person, the hand of the person who takes the water from the well. And then after that he mentioned ma la yunajjisuhul bi'r. So there are certain exceptions that the water is not considered to be najis, as what we mentioned. The first thing that he speaks about the al-arwath. So here he mentioned wal ba'r. Al ba'r is the the feces of the livestock. Likewise, arrows and khinthi. These are the different livestock. The feces of different livestock. La tunjisul bi'ra. It doesn't make the water in the well to be najis, because all these are things that are that are forgiven. Illa ayyastaksirahu an-nazir. Except if a person when he looks at the water, then he sees there are so many of these feces, then it is not forgiven. Aw an la yakhluwa dawlun an ba'ratin. So when he takes the water from the well, the water that is taken must not be have these feces in them, in order for us to say that the water is still pure. Wallahu alam bis-sawab. We will stop here because of time. Inshallah, in our next lesson, we will continue from here. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adhaban nar. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.